Alright, so in this section of the video, now that we've gone over the sizzle reel, I wanted to go over the actual questions from the developer Q&A. And before I jump into that, remember just hitting a like and subscribing on the channel really helps us out. Also, you can go follow Variant Intel on Twitter. That account is going to be specifically used for updates and news where it pertains to DEADROP and Midnight Society. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into these developer Q&As. Big shout out to I Am Spaceman for kind of doing a transcribing of that Q&A call with the developers. It's really helped break all this down, so big shout out to him for that. So let's start with, it says this is the whole thread, and there's going to be several questions on here. So question was, what does the player investment look like? And the answer was vendor leveling, account leveling, weapon mastery on every weapon, completing challenges, crafting, and then they said blood contracts for skill progression and collectibles. So that's kind of a lot to unpack. So you're going to have all your different vendors that you're going to be working with. They're going to have their leveling for that specific vendor. You're going to have an XP account, wide leveling. So you're just going to level up on your account. Weapon mastery is going to be per weapon, which is great. I actually really like that because you know how it is in shooters, like you're going to play with certain weapons way more with others, and you can just focus in on what you like. And then there's going to be challenges to complete. We'll be able to craft weapons. And then the blood contracts is really interesting. And it says this is more like skill progression collectible, or not collectibles, but more skill progression based. Now, I don't have a lot more information on that, but it seems more of a PvP skill-focused thing. Obviously, if we get any further information on that, we'll be doing updates as we go along. So this one says, win wingsuit. So in the variant circle, the founders section, we've been talking about wanting to do wingsuits in the game. Given the vertical nature of the maps in DEADROP, it would be nice to have mechanics that utilize that verticality, which the zipline thrusters are a good example of that. But we know that the developers are working on a lot more gadget ideas, and the wingsuit is extremely popular, so they say it's not in the game now, but it may show up in the future, wink, so that's really cool. The next question was, when will we get a revised roadmap? And this is what I was talking about earlier, how a new roadmap on or after January of 25. So this is really in part due to the layoffs at Midnight Society. They lost half the studio, and so early access was planned for November, but now it's pushed back for those reasons. Pretty straightforward. And then the next question is, how do quests work? Do they have depth, or are they more like kill contracts or extract with, or so on and so on successfully? Getting kills or kills with weapons, stuff to give progression to track. Vendors are a great way to use lore and gameplay to impact quests. So again, pretty straightforward there. That one is really nice because they're gonna lean into the vendors pretty heavily, and it sounds like we're gonna have a lot to do with them, which I'm really excited for. Next question says, what rewards will we gain from quests like gear, vendor rep, etc.? And then the answer was the XP will earn that. We'll earn dust, which dust is the in-game currency that you can use with vendors. Vendor reputation, gear, and those are all the rewards at the moment. And I think I had a typo there with the 122. And it says, next question says, are there any weather events expected during matches? And they say, no, not at the moment, but we want to be clear that the game is meant to be unique. We concepted a fully outdoor sector, and we think, what kind of weather is there? Will there be a day and night cycle? So to kind of further elaborate on that, Quinn was talking about how they want, if they're going to do dynamic weather, they want it to make sense in the world of DEADROP. So like his example was, is it raining? Well, if it is raining, the environment around the refiner state is very toxic. So would it be toxic rain, or, is it snow, but it's not really snow? Maybe it's something else, some other byproduct of the dust refining process, those kinds of things. So their ideology around dynamic weather is how does it make sense in the world of DEADROP? And then, of course, the technical challenges of adding it in. My personal take on that would be that I don't expect any kind of weather stuff to come until way later down the road. When you think about their building a game and the technical aspect of it, there's just so many other things that are priority ahead of that. But it still was a really good answer. So the next question says, what do you think is going to be a main driving factor for players to keep dropping back in as a gameplay loop? And the answer was, the key will be the new progression that has been introduced with levels and gear. So again, they talk about all the different ways that you're going to be leveling up with, leveling your weapons individually, working with the vendors, and your account, XP buildup, and all that kind of stuff. And then the gear, the loot rarities are a thing too, which is great. The next question says, what Web3 systems are looking at being implemented and used in the game beyond the current NFTs we have now? And their answer was, only what is needed will be added. We won't add NFT tools if they aren't needed or relevant. So that was a simplified version of the answer that they gave. Twitter only has so much text you can put in without making a wall of text. So I personally have been kind of keeping up with the Web3 side of things as far as just the gaming world, but how it pertains to DEADROP is pretty unique, and it's a burning question that a lot of people have been having for a long time. And the short of it is they aren't ready to disclose what their plans are for Web3. Quinn made a point to say that we don't have ideas because we're further along than that. We have plans for the Web3 stuff, but we're not ready to share those plans at this time. So what he's saying about like it needs to make sense, I think that's just a marketing way of saying like, yeah, we're not going to get into that right now, but we do have plans. We are strategizing, and we want it to make sense and it be beneficial to the player in a way that makes sense. So I'm for the Web3 folks out there, I'm right there with you. Like, I've been curious about this since day one, and unfortunately it looks like we're gonna have to wait a little bit longer. So the next question says, do you plan on having Easter egg like secrets? For example, finding a secret key and open a hidden stash room, or flip switches to open a gate. And it says keys and doors have been spoken about, yeah, but collectibles will be hidden and be found over a long period of time. I kind of interpret that as like what we saw in the sizzle reel, right? Like you found a lore collectible, and there's like a container with high value loot in the area. We don't know what kind of loot that would be, or for the lore, we don't know how we would read it. Do we read that in game? Does it give us a link to go off site? Like, that really hasn't been worked out yet, or we don't know any information about it yet. So the next question says, can you explain the new armor system? What don't we see at the moment in game that's being explored? And the answer is, armor determines amount of plates. Plates are different HP amounts. Colin, the design director, has gone into great lengths about this in the Discord. Definitely join the Midnight Society Discord if you haven't already, because the developers are talking in there all the time. And this is one of the things that has a lot of math behind it. And they said, and as a founder in the playtest, we've playtested this a little bit. The armor plate system. It was, a very small slice, very rudimentary, but basically, I think there's like 4 different rarities of armor plates, like steel, iron, and then there's a carbon fiber one, and they all have different HP amounts tied to them. I don't know what those numbers are. So I think you're going to have like 4 different types of armor plates that you can use. As a claw, as a rat, rats cannot use armor plates. Just FYI on that. So we'll move on to the next question. It says, what are some hideout gameplay features that have been explored for future that haven't been talked about yet? Their answer was really short on this. They're like, we agree it should come back, and they have confirmed that it is in progress. We know this because in the Founders playtest, we've been seeing different versions of the hideout. Very simple stuff, very bare bones, but still, like, the geometry was changing. and like one week the garage was over here, the next week they moved it, but all very simple stuff. The art director Darren Bacon was talking about this, and he was, without giving anything away, kind of hinting that like, yes, we want it to come back, wink, it's being worked on, but like they're not ready to really spoil whatever that is. So I guess we're gonna have to wait a little bit longer on what the hideout's gonna look like in its final state. The next one says, any update on the UGC creator tool? And the answer is, we're still building these core systems, so it's a question on how do we go about managing cosmetics. As you saw in the video, we have character customization. So from what I've seen, again, in the Discord and seen them talk about the creator tool stuff, one big driving feature that they keep talking about is by building the DCM features now, because a lot of people are like, why spend all the resources and manpower to build DCM stuff when the core vertical extraction mode is what we were sold on in the beginning? Why not just put all the effort into that to get that out faster? And their answer was really good. They said that basically by building the DCM toolsets now, we're making our lives as developers easier down the road, because when we want to just drop in features and create new features, by having that DCM toolset pre-built, it allows us to, work seamlessly, is kind of the best way I could articulate the way they were trying to say it, right? So it's really about the back end engineering of it all overall. It's like, let's build these tool sets in now, that way later when we want to add cosmetics and maps or whatever it is, these core things that need to be there are already there. So that's kind of like straight from, that's a very paraphrased version of what the developers have talked about in the Discord. So next question says, how is Midnight Society doing with the recent layoffs? Quinn answered this one. To Quinn's credit, he didn't dodge this one. It's obviously a really big pain point. They just lost 17 people at the studio that are all just top-notch, extremely talented people. And this answer here on the Twitter is a shortened version, but he says, it was unfortunate and unplanned. A couple weeks ago was really difficult for everyone involved. And he said, our goal is to get as many of them as possible back as we can, but we are resolute in our confidence in DEADROP. So that's like a paraphrased version of his words, but to elaborate and give you guys here in the video like a more in-depth of what he was talking about. So Robert Bowling, the studio head, and Quinn, the game director, have both echoed this multiple times since this happened. It wasn't something they saw coming, and again, this is their words, and they did not want this to happen at all. Robert Bowling has gone on to say in the Discord more than once that he has been working with every industry contact he has. They're trying to get new and more funding for DEADROP. And as per Quinn, kind of echoing Rob, he said in yesterday's Q&A that, it is absolutely their goal to get back to a position where they can re-offer employment to all those affected. And he also said something that is kind of obvious, but he said, these are all super talented people. It's likely that they'll get scooped up by other companies very quickly. So it may come down to the fact that, like, once Midnight Society is in a place to re-offer them employment, it may very well be difficult to get them back, whether it's a pay negotiation or, they're just over there cooking at their new job and those kinds of things. But that he made it a point to say that that's not going to stop them from attempting to get everybody back that they can. As a community member and someone who's met a lot of those affected in person at the live events, I hope they're bouncing back quickly, and we love them, we miss them. We hope they still interact with everybody on Twitter and in the Discord if they can. It's one of those things that was just affected not only the development team and those people affected with their jobs, but like the community. The morale, like Quinn was saying, yeah, it was extremely tough, man. It's like not something anybody really wanted to happen. And you know, but he, Quinn reiterated that when it comes to building this game, they are resolute in their confidence in the product, and they're confident in what they've got and what the team has built. Shout out to Ratboy, which is Ryan, one of the developers. He also made a statement to say that we had internal discussions about the future of things and how we wanted to do this, and this is one thing Ryan said that I really liked a lot, and he said, we don't think it would be fair to just throw in the towel, because these people that put in all this hard work, like, we want to honor that. We want to honor their work, and Ryan was saying that it gives him motivation to really work harder and give it his best, right? And that seems to be the general sentiment among the remaining staff now, and that and Rob and Quinn are both saying that they have more than enough to get to the next milestones that they're chasing, right? And meanwhile, they're working on new partnerships, new funding, things like that. So Quinn was, I'm glad that he answered that question the way he did. It just let us know that, hey, like, yeah, we also felt this directly, and we didn't want it to happen, but we got to honor these people's work. We got to bust our tail. You, the community, have been there the whole time and sticking with us, and we're gonna make DEADROP as badass as we can. So I really personally like that, and shout out to the devs for that. So moving on to the next question, it says, how will the Midnight Ride or Midnight Drive section be expanded on? So the Midnight Drive portion is like when we would load into Sector 3, like first we do this death race scenario to the tower to get our to pick our spawn points and stuff. And the answer is it's not dead or gone, but it's on the back burner as we focus on the vertical extraction shooter mode. So to elaborate on that, because again, Twitter only has so much room to type all this stuff out. What they are doing when early access comes out is the driving portion is going to be minimalized to, like, I don't know if it's going to be like a loading screen or something, but it's not something that we're going to actually interact with like we did before. It's going to be way more simplified to get people into matches quicker. That being said, it's not a permanent change. They're not getting rid of the driving portion. Quinn was talking about how they envision, where, since there's different sectors and districts that you can go into to get into the refiner state, they don't want the tracks to be the same every time, because that doesn't make sense in the world. Like, if you're heading towards Sector 3, the track would be this way, and then if you go to like Sector 2, the track would be completely different. But in order to build out that feature, they need to put it on the back burner for now, leading into early access. So it will be a more simplified version, and I don't know that any of our car cosmetics or anything are going to really matter so much for a while, but it is temporary. So just to quell any like worries that anyone has, they are not nixing the driving mode. It will be simplified, but it's going to come back later with more development. All right, so next question. What other sandbox equipment are you looking at? Will we see more consumables down the road that augment player abilities? It says, new variations of grenades have been in development with a lot more variations in the sandbox. So when it comes to gadgets and equipments, like they've talked about this a lot, how, yeah, they're developing new types of grenades. They're definitely working on new types of gadgets, just to round out the player's tool set. So that's absolutely happening. The next one says, how many completed sectors are you planning to launch with in early access? And the answer was, we are planning on Atrium District. We went from every map is a sector to every map is a district in a sector. This is a really, really big point that we need to kind of break down a little bit. But for now, I'm going to end this here, and then we're going to do this in a part 2. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell notifications, and we'll see you in part 2.